Poor baby is abandoned in front of a millionaire's house. Years later, something surprising happens. Let's take a step back to understand what happened. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. On a rainy night, the sound of raindrops tapping against the window seemed to echo the relentless chime of the doorbell. Ethan, seated on the couch watching the news, felt a chill run down his spine. The insistent ringing carried a sense of urgency he couldn't ignore. Quickly, he stood up, crossed the dimly lit living room, illuminated only by the soft glow of a lamp, and opened the door with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Outside, the cold wind carried an air of mystery and unease. On the doorstep, a baby carrier sat like an object misplaced, yet bearing an undeniable significance. Inside, a tiny infant wrapped in a light blue blanket stared up at him with wide, glistening eyes. The silence of the moment was magnified by the shock. There was no one else in sight, just the child and the distant echo of the rain. "Sarah," Ethan called, his voice trembling despite his efforts to steady it. His wife appeared at the door, her eyes still heavy with sleep. But when she saw what Ethan was holding, her expression instantly shifted to one of both wonder and concern. Without hesitation, she took the baby into her arms, cradling it against her chest. "Who could do something like this?" she asked, her voice quivering with emotion. Ethan, still trying to process what was happening, stepped outside and glanced around, hoping to catch sight of someone running away or hiding. Nothing. The silence felt like a cruel response to his desperate search for answers. Returning inside, he brought the baby carrier with him. They placed the child on the dining table as they tried to make sense of the situation. That's when Sarah noticed something. A folded letter resting on the seat of the baby carrier. With trembling hands, Sarah opened the letter as Ethan leaned in close, trying to decipher the words alongside her. The paper, slightly crumpled, carried a weight far greater than its physical form. The handwriting was firm but revealed traces of hesitation, as if every word had been written through tears and anguish. "Please forgive me for this act. I am unable to care for him, but I chose you because I know you can give him the love I never will be able to. Watching you from afar, I saw the kindness in your actions and the care with which you raise your children. Please protect my baby and love him as your own. I will forever be grateful. With love, a desperate mother." When she finished reading, Sarah let out a sob, her eyes filling with tears as she looked at the baby, who was now moving his tiny hands as if reaching for something unseen. Ethan remained silent, his jaw clenched. It was clear that, despite his attempt to stay composed, something deep within him had been profoundly moved. She chose us," Sarah murmured, as if she needed to confirm the words she had just read. "Ethan, this isn't a coincidence. We can't just turn away from this." Ethan sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "I know, but this is huge, Sarah. We don't know anything about him, or where he came from. What if it's dangerous?" Sarah shook her head, her voice firm despite the tears. "The only danger here would be doing nothing. Look at him, Ethan. He needs us." The couple sat at the table, the baby between them. They remained silent for a moment, absorbing the magnitude of the situation. Outside, the rain continued, as if the sky, too, mourned the baby's fate. Finally, Ethan took Sarah's hand and squeezed it. "We'll take care of him. We'll figure out what's needed and do it right." Sarah smiled, a wave of relief washing over her. "We were chosen. I feel it in my heart. I don't know how, but somehow, I know this baby is here for a reason." The next morning, Ethan and Sarah's house was filled with a mix of calm and anticipation. The baby slept peacefully in the makeshift nursery, which had once been Ethan's office. Rays of sunlight streamed through the curtains, casting a warm glow on the baby's serene face. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Sarah was preparing breakfast, though she could barely eat. Her thoughts were consumed with to-do lists. Finding a pediatrician, contacting the authorities, and figuring out what would be needed to make the baby officially part of their family. Ethan walked into the kitchen quietly. His eyes were slightly red, evidence that he had spent much of the night awake. He sat at the table and, after a long sip of coffee, said, "I spoke with the family attorney. He'll guide us through what we need to do." Sarah nodded, but she noticed the hesitation in his voice. "You're still worried, aren't you?" "Of course I am," Ethan replied, setting his mug down. "It's not just about what we need to do. It's about how this will change our lives. Liam and Sophie, will they understand? And what if the mother comes back and wants the baby? I don't want us to be shattered down the road." Sarah walked over and placed her hand over his. "Ethan, none of this is guaranteed, I know. But what I do know is that right now this baby needs us. He has no one. We can't leave him without support." Ethan took a deep breath. "You're right. We'll do this together, like we always have." Later that day, Ethan and Sarah visited a pediatrician who confirmed the baby was healthy, though he appeared slightly malnourished. Upon returning home, they made a call to social services, reporting the situation and beginning the process to formalize temporary custody. Liam and Sophie, who had been at their grandmother's house during the incident, finally came home. When they saw the baby, their eyes lit up with curiosity and excitement. "Is he our baby brother?" Sophie asked, her 5-year-old smile filled with innocent delight. Ethan and Sarah exchanged glances before responding. "For now, he's our special guest," Ethan said, trying to keep his tone light. "But who knows? Maybe he'll stay with us for a long time." The next few days were a whirlwind. Visits to the attorney, meetings with social workers, and, above all, adapting to the newest member of their family. Despite the exhaustion, Ethan and Sarah felt a sense of peace, as if, somehow, everything was falling into place. The first months with the baby were intense but also incredibly rewarding for the family. Ethan and Sarah, already accustomed to the routine of raising 2 young children, quickly fell back into the rhythm of nighttime feedings, preparing bottles and changing diapers. The baby, whom they decided to name Noah, seemed to bring a renewed energy to their home. Liam, with his typical 7-year-old curiosity, loved to help. Whenever Sarah held Noah, Liam was close by, offering toys or making funny faces to keep him entertained. Sophie, on the other hand, had developed a protective instinct that surprised everyone. "Mommy, he's going to be my best friend forever," she would say while gently rocking the baby in his stroller. Despite the children's support, Ethan couldn't shake a lingering sense of apprehension. The meetings with social workers continued, and the couple had to provide documents, references, and evidence proving they were capable of raising Noah safely. Each meeting served as a reminder that the situation wasn't permanent, and Ethan couldn't avoid the fear of losing the boy. One Saturday afternoon, while Sarah was baking a cake with the kids, Ethan decided to reorganize the old office, now Noah's room. The crib, hastily assembled on that first night, needed adjustments. As he tidied up, he came across the letter again, carefully stored in a drawer. He read it once more, and this time the words seemed to carry a deeper meaning. The phrase, "I chose you because I know you can give him the love I will never be able to provide," echoed in his mind. Ethan realized that, despite all his doubts, this responsibility wasn't a burden but a privilege. A newfound sense of purpose filled him as he placed the letter back in its spot and finished organizing the room. That night, with the kids fast asleep and Noah resting in his crib, Ethan and Sarah sat together on the couch. He took her hand and said, "You know, I think I'm starting to understand what you meant that first night. I think Noah really was brought into our lives for a reason." Sarah smiled, relieved. "I knew you'd feel that way. He's already a part of us, Ethan. No matter what happens, we won't give up on him." And, for the first time in weeks, Ethan felt like everything was going to be okay. Years passed, and Noah grew up surrounded by the love and joy of his adoptive family. He became a tall teenager with an easy smile and a natural talent for basketball, which made him popular among his peers. Ethan and Sarah felt immense pride as they watched him grow alongside Liam and Sophie, who remained inseparable from him. One afternoon, like any other, Noah was walking home after practice. He wore his uniform, his backpack slung over one shoulder, and listened to music through his headphones. The familiar streets of the quiet neighborhood felt like home, a place where he belonged. Suddenly, a woman's voice called out sharply, "Son, my son." He turned, startled, and saw a woman who appeared to be in her 40s. She was dressed simply, her expression filled with desperation. She was only a few yards away, gesturing toward him with trembling hands. "Wait, please, don't run," she called out, taking a few steps toward him. But Noah, overwhelmed by fear and confusion, turned and began to run. His heart pounded as his thoughts raced in circles. Who was that woman? What did she want? When he got home, he quickly locked the door and dropped his backpack to the floor. Ethan and Sarah were in the living room, and they immediately stood up when they saw his state. "Noah, what happened?" Sarah asked, alarmed. "A woman. She said she was my mother," Noah said, breathing heavily as he sank onto the couch. "She looked desperate." "Who was she?" Silence filled the room. Ethan and Sarah exchanged a heavy, worried glance. Finally, Ethan sat down next to Noah and placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Listen, son. There are people out there who might try to confuse you. This woman is probably mistaken. We just want you to stay safe. If you see her again, don't talk to her. Just come home or call us immediately." Noah nodded, but his mind was swirling with doubts. He trusted his parents completely, yet the woman's words echoed in his head. Why did she seem so certain about who I am? That night, Noah went to his room early, but he couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, trying to unravel the mystery of that brief but unsettling interaction. Meanwhile, in another part of the house, Ethan and Sarah were having a tense conversation. "What if she comes back?" Sarah asked, her nerves on edge. "We'll find out who she is," Ethan replied, his voice resolute. "If she really is who we think, we need to handle this before Noah gets further involved. He's not ready for this." The next morning, the atmosphere in the house was heavy. Noah avoided bringing up the woman, but his unease was evident in his behavior. He barely touched his breakfast, his eyes distant and lost in thought. Liam and Sophie, unaware of what had happened, tried to cheer up their older brother with jokes and playful antics, but it was no use. Meanwhile, Ethan and Sarah had other concerns. As soon as the kids left for school, Ethan began making discreet phone calls. He reached out to a private investigator who had helped the family with a financial matter years ago. After briefly explaining the situation, he asked for help identifying the woman who had approached Noah. "If she is who we think she is," Ethan said over the phone, "we need to know for sure before taking any action." Sarah, sitting at the kitchen table, listened to the conversation while staring at a photo of Noah on his 10th birthday. He was smiling, holding a cake Liam and Sophie had helped decorate. The memory brought a tightness to her chest. All she wanted was to protect him, but she feared the truth might be unavoidable. That afternoon, while Noah was still at school, the investigator called back. "I have some preliminary information," he began. "Based on the description and the area where she was spotted, there's a strong possibility she's Noah's biological mother." Ethan took a deep breath, trying to process the confirmation. "Are you certain?" "Not entirely," the investigator replied. "I'll need more time to dig through records, but it seems she's been in the area for a while. This might indicate she's been trying to get closer." When Noah came home from school, the tension in the air was palpable. He immediately noticed his parents' reserved demeanor but chose not to ask. He went straight to his room and threw himself onto his bed, trying to push away the memory of the woman he'd seen. That evening, Ethan and Sarah called Noah for a talk. Sitting in the living room, the three of them seemed surrounded by a silence that hung like a heavy cloud. "Noah, we need to talk about what happened yesterday," Sarah began, her voice gentle but serious. "We know it scared you, and we want you to know we're here to protect you. You think she's my mom, don't you?" Noah asked directly, catching his parents off guard. Ethan glanced at Sarah before responding. "The truth is, we don't know yet, son. But if that's the case, we want to handle this in a way that won't hurt you. That's our priority." Noah sat silently for a moment, staring at the floor. Why did she wait so long? Why now? Sarah leaned closer to him. "We don't know, Noah, but we promise we won't let this harm you. We'll face this together as a family." Noah nodded, but for the first time, he felt there was a world of questions and uncertainties beyond the safety of his parents' protection. A few days later, as Noah was walking home from school, the same woman appeared again. This time, she seemed more composed, almost as if she was afraid of scaring him off again. From a distance, she gestured, signaling for him to stop. "Please, just listen to me," she said, her voice heavy with an almost desperate urgency. Noah hesitated. His first instinct was to run, as he had before, but something in her eyes made him pause. Still wary, he kept a safe distance. "I don't want to hurt you," she continued, tears beginning to stream down her face. "I just need you to know. I'm your mother. It's me." Noah's heart pounded uncontrollably. He wanted to shout that she was wrong, that he already had a mom and dad, but the words stuck in his throat. The woman, sensing the conflict on his face, tried to explain. I didn't have a choice," she said, taking a hesitant step forward. "I was young, alone, and I had no way to care for you. But I loved you. I still love you. Please, just hear me out." Noah, still struggling to process it all, shook his head. "You're wrong. I have a family. I have a mom and dad who've always taken care of me. You're not my mom." "I understand," she replied, her voice breaking. "I understand that you love them, and I'm glad for that. But the truth is, I'm the one who brought you to them. I chose them to be your family because I knew I couldn't give you the life you deserve. But not a single day has passed that I haven't thought about you." Noah stood frozen, her words echoing in his mind. He didn't know if he believed her or if he wanted to believe her. After a few moments, he murmured something inaudible and turned to run home. When he arrived, he found Ethan and Sarah in the kitchen. His eyes were red, and he looked as though he was about to burst. "She said she's my mother," he finally blurted out. "She said she left me here because she couldn't take care of me." Ethan and Sarah's faces turned pale. They had known this moment would come, but nothing had prepared them for it. "Noah," Ethan began, his voice heavy with seriousness and compassion, "we need to talk about this. The truth is, yes, she might be your biological mother, but that doesn't change the fact that we're your family. We always have been, and we always will be." Sarah stepped closer and placed her hands on Noah's shoulders. "You are our son. No matter what happens, we will always be here for you. But if you want to know more about her, we'll support you. We don't want you to face this alone." Noah felt the tears welling up, and this time, he didn't hold them back. For the first time, he allowed himself to feel the confusion and pain he had been trying to avoid. Ethan and Sarah wrapped him in a hug, forming a circle of support that felt unbreakable. After the encounter with the woman, Noah began to distance himself slightly from his family. It wasn't because he wanted to hurt Ethan or Sarah, but because he felt trapped in a whirlwind of doubts and emotions he didn't know how to control. He spent more time in his room, his headphones drowning out the world around him, or he went on long walks, saying he needed fresh air. Ethan and Sarah noticed the change immediately. That night, while Noah was in his room, they sat in the living room to talk. The tension in the air was palpable. "He's so different," Sarah said, her eyes welling up with tears. "He barely talks to us. Do you think he blames us for keeping this from him?" Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples. "I don't know, Sarah. I think he's just confused. And who can blame him? We kept the truth from him for so long. He has every right to feel this way, But we did it out of love, she replied, her voice breaking. We wanted to protect him, to give him a stable and happy life. And now it feels like everything is falling apart. Ethan took her hand. It's not falling apart. Noah loves us. He just needs time to process all of this. But I think we need to be honest. He deserves to know the whole truth. Noah, who had come downstairs to grab a glass of water, overheard part of the conversation and froze at the bottom of the stairs. The word truth echoed in his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that his parents were hiding more than they had told him. The next morning, during breakfast, Noah finally broke the silence. I want to see her again, he said, without looking directly at Ethan or Sarah. They both stopped what they were doing. Sarah put down her spoon, while Ethan, with a calm and measured tone, replied, If that's what you want, we'll support you. But we'd like to be there with you when it happens. Noah nodded, surprised by their response. He had expected resistance but found understanding instead. A few days later, Ethan contacted the investigator, who had already identified the woman as Laura, Noah's biological mother. With a meeting arranged at a quiet cafe in town, Ethan and Sarah accompanied Noah, keeping a respectful distance to ensure his privacy while making sure he wasn't alone. Laura arrived punctually, holding a small bag. When she saw Noah, her face lit up, though she tried to keep her composure. Thank you for coming, she said, her voice calm but visibly emotional. Noah didn't know how to begin. He sat across from Laura, his eyes fixed on the table. You said you left me because you had no choice, he started, his voice firm but hesitant. Why didn't you try to find another way? Laura swallowed hard, pulling a necklace out of the bag and placing it on the table. It was a small pendant of an angel worn with age. I did try, she replied, her voice trembling, but it was just me. I was alone with no family, no help. I chose you, and I chose them because I knew it would be better than what I could give you. Noah picked up the necklace, feeling the symbolic weight of the object. Is this yours? It was mine, Laura replied, offering a faint smile. Now it's yours. To remind you that, even from afar, I never forgot you. Noah remained silent, but this time he felt as if the pieces were beginning to fall into place. He didn't know exactly how he felt yet, but something inside him seemed a bit clearer. Noah returned home after the meeting with Laura in silence. In the car, Ethan and Sarah respected his need for space, but couldn't help exchanging worried glances through the rearview mirror. The necklace Laura had given him swung gently in his hand as he appeared lost in thought, trying to process everything he had heard. When they arrived home, Noah went straight to his room. He stared at the pendant for a few minutes before placing it in a drawer. He wasn't sure what to think about Laura. On one hand, he felt pity for everything she had been through, but on the other, it was still hard to accept that she had left him, even if it was out of love. A little while later, Sarah knocked softly on his door. Can I come in? She asked gently. Sure, Noah replied, sitting up on the bed. Sarah sat beside him, leaving a small gap between them. Do you want to talk about how it went? Noah took a deep breath, looking down at his hands. I don't know how to feel, Mom. She seemed sorry. She said she left me because she thought she was doing the best thing. But how can someone just abandon their own child? Sarah placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. Noah, sometimes life puts people in impossible situations. I'm not saying it was easy or right, but maybe she truly believed you would have a better life with another family. And I need to tell you, she was right, because I can't imagine our lives without you. Noah's eyes filled with tears, but he quickly wiped them away. You never kept anything from me because you wanted to lie to me, right? Of course not, Sarah answered without hesitation. We wanted you to feel safe, loved, part of something bigger. It was never to keep the truth from you, but to protect you from something we didn't know how to explain. Maybe we made a mistake waiting so long, but it was never because we didn't love you. Ethan entered the room at that moment, sensing the emotional weight of the conversation. Mind if I join you? Noah nodded, and Ethan sat down beside them. I know it must feel like your world has been turned upside down, son, but we want you to know we're with you every step of the way, no matter what you decide. Noah looked at both of them, finally letting the tears fall. I just want to understand all of this. I want to know more about her, but I don't want you to think I'm trying to replace you, because you're my parents. You always have been. Ethan and Sarah hugged Noah at the same time, enveloping him in an embrace that seemed to solidify their bond even further. You don't have to choose, Noah, Ethan said. There's room for everyone in your heart, and we'll support you, no matter what happens. In the days that followed, Noah began to find a sense of balance between his daily life and his growing curiosity about Laura. He agreed to continue seeing her, but only under the condition that Ethan and Sarah were kept informed. It was important to him that his adoptive parents knew his love and loyalty toward them hadn't wavered. Laura, for her part, respected every boundary they set. When they met again, it was at a quiet park where Noah could bring his basketball and dribble to ease the tension while they talked. Laura watched from a distance, smiling each time Noah made a perfect shot. You're pretty good, she said, approaching him after a while. I practice a lot, he replied, keeping his tone casual but unable to hide a hint of pride. They sat on a nearby bench, and Laura pulled an old photograph from her bag. This was your biological father, she said, handing him the picture. Noah studied the photo curiously. The man had features similar to his own, but something about his expression unsettled him. He looked distant, cold. Why isn't he here too? Noah asked, not taking his eyes off the photo. Laura hesitated before answering. He left when he found out I was pregnant. He never wanted anything to do with us. The honesty in her voice made Noah uncomfortable. He wasn't sure whether to feel sad for not knowing his biological father or grateful that a man like that wasn't in his life. How did you choose my parents? He asked, changing the subject. Laura took a deep breath, as if summoning the courage to revisit that moment. I watched their neighborhood for weeks. I saw how they treated Liam and Sophie, with so much love, so much patience. I knew that if they had room in their hearts for another child, you would be loved the same way they loved those two. Was that why you left the letter? Yes. And the necklace. It was all I had to make sure you'd always know you weren't abandoned out of lack of love. I wanted you to know I chose what was best for you. Noah didn't respond immediately. He looked at the photo of his biological father again before handing it back to Laura. I think I'm starting to understand, he said finally. That evening, Noah told his adoptive parents about the conversation. He described Laura's sincerity but made it clear that his love for Ethan and Sarah remained unwavering. I just wanted you to know, he said as they all sat together in the living room. Because you're part of this too. You always have been. Sarah smiled, tears glistening in her eyes, while Ethan nodded, proud of Noah's maturity. We're so proud of you, Ethan said. It's not easy to deal with all of this, but you're showing incredible strength. A few weeks later, as Noah continued to meet with Laura occasionally, something unexpected happened. On an ordinary afternoon, while he was walking home from school, a man approached him near the gate of his house. The man was tall, with an unshaven beard and clothes that looked more expensive than practical, but his eyes carried an unsettling gleam. Noah, right? The man said, his tone casual but unervingly forced. Noah stopped, frowning. Who are you? My name is Ryan, the man replied, shoving his hands into the pockets of his coat. I'm your biological father. Noah's heart raced. He didn't know whether to run inside or stay and face the uncomfortable situation head-on. I know this might be a shock, Ryan continued, with a smile that seemed as fake as his tone. But I've heard about you, and... well, I thought it was time we got to know each other. You left, Noah said, unable to hide the bitterness in his voice. You knew I existed, and you didn't want to meet me. Ryan sighed, seemingly trying to muster an expression of regret. Things were complicated back then. I was young and I made mistakes. But now I want to make things right. Fix what? You think you can just show up and pretend you didn't leave me? Noah fired back, his anger evident. Before Ryan could respond, the front door opened and Ethan stepped outside. He quickly assessed the situation and moved to stand protectively beside Noah. "Who are you?" Ethan asked firmly. "I'm Noah's biological father," Ryan replied, extending a hand as if expecting a polite handshake. Ethan didn't move. "You have no right to show up here like this," Ethan said sharply. "Noah doesn't need you in his life. We're his family." Ryan smirked slightly, but his eyes hardened. "Oh, of course, the perfect family. Wealthy, welcoming. But I'm his father, whether you like it or not. And I'm not going away that easily." Ethan stood his ground, refusing to let Ryan's words faze him. "If you think you can just appear out of nowhere and disrupt my son's life, you're seriously mistaken. You need to leave. Now." Ryan shrugged as if he didn't care, but before turning away, he looked directly at Noah. "You'll see me again, kid. That's a promise." As Ryan walked off, Ethan placed a reassuring hand on Noah's shoulder. "Are you okay, son?" Noah nodded, but it was clear he was shaken. "Why does he want to come back now? What does he want from me?" "I don't know," Ethan admitted honestly, "but we'll protect you. Always." When they went inside, Sarah immediately sensed that something was wrong. After hearing the account from Ethan and Noah, her expression grew tense. "If he comes back, we need to involve the police. We can't take any chances with Noah's safety." Noah went up to his room, trying to process what had happened. He stared at the necklace Laura had given him, thinking about how she, too, had made it clear she didn't want Ryan involved. Something about it all felt wrong, as if Ryan's intentions were far from genuine. The days following the encounter with Ryan were tense. Noah tried to stick to his routine, but he couldn't shake the unease brought on by his biological father's sudden appearance. Ethan and Sarah, on the other hand, remained on high alert, worried about the possibility of Ryan showing up again. One afternoon, while Noah was at school, Laura called Sarah. Her voice was hurried and trembling, as if she had something urgent to share. "Sarah, we need to talk," Laura said. "Ryan came to see me." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "What did he want?" "He's obsessed with finding Noah," Laura replied, her voice heavy with guilt. "He says he wants to claim some sort of right over him. I tried to convince him to stay away, but he wouldn't listen. I'm worried, Sarah. He's not a trustworthy person." "He's already shown up here," Sarah revealed, trying to keep her composure. "He confronted Noah right outside our house and made it clear he plans to come back." On the other end of the line, Laura cursed softly. "This is worse than I thought. Ryan is dangerous. He never hurt me physically, but he has a way of manipulating people to get what he wants. I just wanted to protect Noah from all of this." "Then we'll protect him," Sarah replied firmly. "If he shows up again, we'll call the police. But, Laura, we need your help. If you hear anything at all, let us know immediately." After the call, Sarah told Ethan what had happened. He agreed it was time to strengthen their protective measures. They contacted a family law attorney and began exploring legal options to prevent Ryan from approaching Noah. Meanwhile, Noah was on the school basketball court, trying to channel his frustration into the game. He enjoyed the feeling of sweat dripping down his face, the sound of the ball bouncing on the floor, and the adrenaline of each successful shot. But as he left the court, he saw Ryan leaning against a nearby tree. "Don't worry," Ryan said, raising his hands in a gesture of false innocence. "I just want to talk." Noah immediately backed away, his heart racing. "You shouldn't be here. Go away." Ryan stepped forward, trying to appear friendly. "Hey, relax. I just want to help. I know this must be hard for you to understand. Finding out your biological father is out there and that he made mistakes. But I'm here now, trying to make things right." "Make things right?" Noah shot back, crossing his arms. "You left me. My family is Ethan and Sarah. They've taken care of me my whole life. I don't need you." Ryan's face hardened, and the friendly tone disappeared. "Your family? They're not your blood, Noah. You and I, we're the same. Think about what that means." Noah took a step back, feeling threatened. Before the situation could escalate, one of the school coaches appeared, calling for him. Ryan immediately backed off, muttering something inaudible before disappearing into the trees. When Noah got home, he recounted what had happened. Ethan exploded with anger, vowing that Ryan's actions would not go unpunished. Sarah, however, held Noah's hands, trying to convey a sense of calm. "You did the right thing by walking away," Sarah said. "We'll take care of this. He won't bother you again." After the incident at school, Ethan and Sarah decided it was time to take concrete steps to protect Noah. They scheduled a meeting with their family lawyer and explained the entire situation, from Ryan's initial approach to their growing concerns over his persistence. "Ryan has no legal rights over Noah," the lawyer said after hearing everything. "But that doesn't mean he can't cause trouble. The best solution would be to file for a restraining order. It will show that you're taking Noah's safety seriously." "We'll do it immediately," Ethan replied, his voice resolute. Meanwhile, Sarah stayed in constant communication with Laura, trying to gather more information about Ryan. Laura, visibly remorseful for not warning the family sooner, shared details that only deepened their concerns. "He lost his job a few months ago," Laura admitted, her voice tense over the phone. "And I know he's struggling for money. I'm afraid he's targeting Noah because of that." That evening, Ethan, Sarah, and Noah had an honest conversation. They explained what they were doing to ensure his safety and how determined they were to protect him. "You're not facing this alone," Sarah said, holding her son's hands. "We're here with you, always." Noah, who had maintained a calm facade throughout the ordeal, finally broke down. "I just want him to leave me alone. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to see him again. He's not part of my life." Ethan nodded, feeling his son's pain as if it were his own. "We'll do everything we can to make sure he doesn't bother you anymore, Noah. Promise." A few days later, the restraining order was issued, and a copy was sent to Ryan. But, as expected, it didn't deter him. He showed up again, this time in front of the family's home, shouting that he wanted to speak to Noah. Ethan was the first to step outside, taking a firm stance on the porch. "You're not welcome here, Ryan. The police will be called if you don't leave right now." Ryan laughed, but there was a desperate edge to his voice. "Oh sure, call the police. Like that's going to change anything. He's my son. You can't keep me away from him forever." Sarah, watching from inside the house, had already called the authorities. As Ryan continued his heated tirade, 2 police cars arrived. The officers got out and approached cautiously. Ryan hesitated when he saw them but didn't back down entirely. "This isn't over," he muttered, his defiance thinly masking his frustration. Ethan crossed his arms, his expression unwavering. "Yes, it is. You're not going to disrupt this family any longer." The officers intervened, escorting Ryan off the property while issuing a stern warning. As the tension subsided, Ethan and Sarah exchanged a relieved glance, but they knew this wasn't the end of the road. They had won this battle, but the fight to keep Noah safe was far from over. "Sir, we need you to leave immediately," one of the officers said. Ryan hesitated but eventually stepped back, realizing he had no choice. Before leaving, he looked directly at Ethan and Sarah. "This isn't over. I'll be back," he said before getting into his car and driving away. Inside the house, Noah watched everything from the window. He felt a mixture of relief and fear, knowing that the threat still loomed over him. Sarah and Ethan wrapped him in a comforting hug. "You're safe," Ethan assured him. "He won't hurt you." After the confrontation outside their home, the family endured days of uncertainty. While they knew the restraining order had been reinforced, Ryan's unpredictable behavior left everyone on edge. Noah began struggling to sleep, often waking in the middle of the night from nightmares of Ryan trying to take him away by force. One night, Sarah found him sitting on the living room couch, staring out the window with a distant expression. She approached quietly and sat beside him, pulling a blanket over both of them. "I can't stop thinking about him," Noah admitted, his voice low and strained. "It's like he's always there, waiting to show up." "I know it feels scary right now," Sarah said, holding his hand. "But you're not alone. We're all here for you, and we won't let him hurt you." Noah sighed, fighting back tears. "I don't understand why he's doing this. He left me. Now he wants to force me into his life. But I don't want that." Sarah pulled him into a hug, feeling the weight of the emotions he was carrying. "You have every right to feel that way, Noah. You don't have to accept anything you don't want. We'll face this together, like we always do." The next morning, Ethan proposed an idea to help Noah feel more secure. "What if we started self-defense classes? Not just for your physical safety, but to help you feel more confident in yourself." Noah hesitated but realized it might be something positive. He agreed, and over the following weeks, he began attending classes. The training not only helped him channel his frustration but also gave him a newfound sense of control over his life. Meanwhile, Ethan and Sarah intensified their conversations with Laura, trying to uncover more details about Ryan's past. "He was never violent with me," Laura revealed during one of their meetings. "But he knows how to manipulate. He'd use words and gestures to control me. And when he realizes he's losing control, he becomes unpredictable." Those words lingered in Ethan's mind as he worked to reinforce the security of their home. He installed cameras, replaced the locks, and went over emergency plans with the entire family. Despite the tension, small moments of peace began to emerge. Noah found comfort in his self-defense classes and the unwavering support of his family. Yet, everyone remained vigilant, knowing Ryan's unpredictability made him a lingering threat. One afternoon, while Noah was practicing basketball alone in the backyard, he received a text on his phone. It was from an unknown number. The message read, "We need to talk. You know who I am. Don't tell your parents." Noah felt a chill run down his spine. He knew it was Ryan. For a moment, he considered ignoring it, but something inside him wouldn't let him. He rushed to show the message to Ethan and Sarah, who immediately contacted the police. "You did the right thing by telling us," Ethan said, proud of his son's decision. "He's trying to manipulate you, but we're not going to let that happen." That night, for the first time in weeks, Noah was able to sleep more peacefully. Knowing his family was by his side and that he didn't have to face this battle alone gave him a small sense of relief. Following Ryan's text, the police launched a more detailed investigation. With Laura's cooperation, they managed to gather crucial information about Ryan's movements, including his temporary address. This gave the family a sense that the situation was finally moving toward resolution, though no one let their guard down. Meanwhile, Noah continued attending his self-defense classes. With each session, he felt stronger and more prepared, not just physically, but mentally. He began to realize that the fear he felt toward Ryan didn't have to control him. One day, after class, he found Ethan waiting for him in the car. On the drive home, Ethan spoke in the calm tone he always used to instill confidence. "I know this has been a huge weight on you," Ethan said, "but I want you to know, seeing how you've handled all of this, I'm prouder of you than ever. You're showing a kind of bravery that many adults wouldn't have." Noah stayed silent for a moment, staring out the window. "I don't feel brave," he replied. "I just want it to be over, and it will be," Ethan assured him. "We're close to resolving this." That evening, while the family was gathered in the living room, the doorbell rang. Everyone froze for a moment. Ethan was the first to get up, asking Sarah and the kids to stay where they were. He looked through the peephole and saw two uniformed police officers. When he opened the door, they informed him that Ryan had been arrested. He had been located at a motel on the outskirts of town, and during the police approach, he had resisted aggressively, leading to his immediate detention. He won't be allowed out on bail, one of the officers explained. And with the restraining order violation, the charges against him are even more severe. You can finally breathe a little easier. Ethan thanked the officers, feeling a wave of relief washing over him. Inside, he shared the news with the family. Noah, though still processing everything, felt a weight lift from his chest. For the first time, it seemed like the nightmare was truly coming to an end. Sarah hugged him tightly, whispering, "You're safe now. It's over." And for the first time in a long while, Noah believed her. When Ethan shared the news with Sarah and Noah, the emotion in the room was palpable. Sarah began to cry, relieved to finally see a light at the end of the tunnel. Noah, though still processing everything, felt as if a massive weight had been lifted from his shoulders. "Does this mean it's over?" he asked, a mixture of caution and hope in his voice. Almost, Ethan replied, "We still have to deal with what this has done to all of us. But you're safe now. That's what matters most." In the days that followed, the family began to return to a sense of normalcy. Noah refocused on basketball and school, and his nights were no longer haunted by nightmares. Laura, upon hearing about Ryan's arrest, also expressed her relief and apologized once again for any pain her connection to him might have caused. "You never meant to hurt me," Noah told her during one of their meetings. "And now I understand that you did what you thought was best for me. I forgive you." Laura couldn't hold back her tears at his words, and the two embraced. Months passed since Ryan's arrest, and Noah's life gradually returned to normal. The house finally regained the light-hearted atmosphere it was known for. Autumn arrived, painting the neighborhood trees in shades of orange and gold, a fitting symbol for the family's fresh start. Noah, now more confident, had become a standout player on his school's basketball team, helping lead them to the state championship finals. On the day of the big game, Ethan, Sarah, Liam, Sophie, and even Laura were in the stands, cheering enthusiastically. When the final buzzer sounded and the scoreboard showed Noah's team had won, he ran to his family's arms, celebrating with a smile that lit up the entire gym. For the first time in a long while, he felt that life was exactly where it was meant to be. After the game, the family gathered for dinner at home, something simple but deeply meaningful. Laura was there, a presence that once seemed impossible but was now accepted and even welcomed. "I'll never be able to thank you enough for everything you've done for him," Laura said, looking at Ethan and Sarah. "You already have," Sarah replied with a warm smile. "We're all part of his life now, and that's what matters." Noah, listening to the conversation, stood up from his chair and faced the table. "I just wanted to say something," he began, his voice a little hesitant but filled with determination. "I know the last few months haven't been easy, but looking at all of you here, I realize how lucky I am. I have two amazing moms and a dad who would do anything for me. And Liam and Sophie, you're the best siblings I could ever ask for. Thank you for never giving up on me." Tears glistened in everyone's eyes as they applauded him, their hearts full of pride and love. It was a moment of unity and healing, a reminder that, no matter the challenges, they were a family, and that bond was unbreakable. The room fell silent for a moment before it was filled with applause and emotional laughter. Sarah wiped away a tear, while Ethan gave Noah a gentle pat on the back. Later that night, as everyone gathered in the living room, sharing stories and laughter, Noah felt something shift within him. He was no longer just the boy who had been left in a baby carrier on someone's doorstep. He was someone loved by two families who, in their own ways, had chosen to stand by his side. As the fire crackled in the fireplace, Ethan looked at Noah and said, "You know, you were never alone. From the moment you came into our lives, you made us complete." Noah smiled, feeling the warmth of Ethan's words. For the first time, he truly believed them. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment sharing your favorite part. See you in the next story.